we are going to graph this linear inequality and show the interval notation for it. So the first thing I'm looking, and I'm seeing that x. So I look and I see that x is less than or equal to 3. So as soon as I see less than or equal to, I know that I have to make a solid dot. Less than is telling me that my line needs to go in this direction. But it doesn't tell me where to stop my line. So I have to put an interval notation for this. Well, we know that 3 is actually going to come second and is going to be inside of a bracket rather than a parentheses, because that's where my graph originates or has a point. Before 3, it's going to keep going and going and going, which means infinity. And whenever I have infinity, I need to use a parentheses. So my final interval notation is going to be parentheses, infinity, comma, 3, brackets. Here I'm going to do the same thing. I have x is greater than or equal to -9. So I'm going to draw my line, to draw 0. I don't feel like counting by 1, so I'm going to count by 3 minus 9. And I know that I have x is greater than or equal to -9. As soon as I see greater than or equal to, then I know it's a solid circle. Then I have to look and I see which direction my arrow is going. My arrow is going in this direction. And it doesn't stop. So here, my interval notation, I'm starting with the -9, and I'm using a bracket because it's greater than or equal to, and it's going on to infinity, and with infinity I always use parentheses. So now we are going to solve the compound inequality, compound because there's 2 parts to it, inequality and graph. So there are 2 things I need to do. First, I'm going to work on solving. In order to solve, I'm going to subtract 1 from both sides. That's going to give me a -3x greater than 9. Now I'm going to divide both sides by a -3. As soon as I say divide by a -3, I immediately know that that means my sign must change. -3 divided by -3 gives me an x. 9 divided by -3 gives me a -3. So that's one part. Now I'm going to look at my second part of my inequality. I have 2x plus 5, so I'm going to do 2x. I'm going to subtract 5 from both sides. That's going to give me 2x is greater than 6. I'm going to divide both sides by 2. In this case, I'm dividing by a positive number, so I don't need to switch my sign. And this one gives me that x is greater than 3. So x is less than -3, and x is greater than positive 3. So now I'm going to go ahead and graph. Here's my 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, and -1, -2, -3, -4. Well, I'm going to start with this one. X is less than -3. Less than. It doesn't say less than or equal to. So I'm going to put an open circle on my -3. And it says that x is less than -3. So I'm going to have one line going in this direction. The second part of my inequality says x is greater than positive 3. I'm also going to put a circle here because x is not equal to 3, and this part of my line is going to go in this direction. Here I have a question asking me for translation. So I'm going to go through this question very carefully, and I'm going to look at each part. It says product, so I know there's going to be multiplication of a number. I don't know what that number is. I'm going to call it x. And 4. So I'm going to have to multiply x times 4. So the product of a number, which is x, and 4 is greater than, so this is greater than or equal to, so that means it's this symbol, greater than or equal to 6 less than. When I have that less than, I know it goes at the end, a number. So this is my response to this question. So here's our Mr. Included and Mr. Not Included. When we're talking about something that is included, it means that we're going to be using the greater than and less than or equal to symbols. For not included, it's just greater than or less than. When it's included, the nose or the circle notation on my graph is going to be filled in. But on my not included, so when it's only greater than or less than, it is not filled in. And finally, when I'm doing interval notation, I'm going to use brackets if it's a number that is included. And if it's not included, I'm going to use parentheses. When we get to the part about graphing, you will learn that with graphing, we use a dotted line. So he's got dotted eyebrows, and Mr. Included gets straight eyebrows because his lines are straight. So that was Mr. Potato Head.